In this video, I want to talk about authenticity. And before you tune out thinking this is going to be some soft self-help thing, let me tell you where this ends up. It ends up at Bitcoin. And the connection is so clean, so structurally precise that I think it might be one of the most important arguments for Bitcoin that nobody has made yet. Bitcoin is the base layer of digital trust in an age of exponential AI abundance. And this is part 2 of 3 of exploring my ideas around this topic. So here's the setup. I'm going to introduce you to a nuclear physicist who figured out that love is literally a physics equation. Then I'm going to show you that every wisdom tradition in human history independently confirmed his math. And then I'm going to show you that Bitcoin, through proof of work, is doing the exact same thing in the digital world that authentic humans do in the physical world. But we have to build to that, and it starts with entropy. Thomas Campbell is not your average thinker. He's a nuclear physicist who spent decades at NASA and the Department of Defense, and he spent 30 years building what he calls My Big Toe, his theory of everything. 3 books with over 1,000 pages, and at the core of it, it comes down to something deceptively simple. He's applying hard physics, information theory specifically, to the one thing science has historically been afraid to touch. His framework starts with 2 assumptions. Consciousness exists and evolution operates through natural selection. From there, he derives something that honestly blew my mind when I first heard it. He argues that consciousness evolves by reducing entropy, by creating order from chaos. And here's where it gets really interesting. He redefines love and fear not as feelings, not as emotions, but as measurable states. Love is low entropy consciousness, cooperative, ordered, and integrated. Fear is high entropy consciousness, fragmented, chaotic, and self-serving. Think about that for a second. When you're in a state of love, of genuine care for others, things just flow. There's cooperation, there's trust, and there's order. When you're in fear, everything fragments. Nobody trusts anyone, everyone's looking out for themselves, and it's pure chaos. Thomas Campbell went on the Joe Rogan podcast and told him something that I keep on coming back to. He said, in a social system, it's pretty obvious that low entropy, which is the goal, is true cooperation, caring, helping, and working together. On the opposite side, the fear side, there's not much cooperation because nobody can really trust anyone else. Nobody can really trust anyone else or anything they see or anything they read. It kind of sounds familiar like, I don't know, the entire internet right now. So yeah, hold that thought because that line about trust is going to become the entire hinge of my argument. But first, Thomas Campbell said something about authenticity that I need you to hear. Campbell is explicit that consciousness evolution, what the spiritual traditions call growing up, cannot be performed. It cannot be faked. He calls this, and I really love this distinction, the authenticity asymmetry. He says, if you really want to grow and lower your entropy, if you really want to become love and get rid of your fear, then the acting will probably move over into being. If on the other hand, you're acting because you think you'll get extra points, you have a deep desire to impress other people. And you feel that, right? Like the difference between someone who is genuinely kind and someone who performs kindness. Between someone who has actually done the inner work and someone who just talks the language. And there's something about authenticity that you can sense immediately, even if you cannot articulate why. And here's what most people miss, in my opinion. This isn't just philosophy. In Campbell's framework, the distinction between genuine transformation and performance is an information theoretic one. Genuine growth produces ordered low entropy consciousness. Performance produces noise. It looks like a signal, but it's not. It's high entropy pretending to be low entropy. And it always breaks down eventually because it's fake. And Campbell said something else that I thought was really powerful. He talks about life and says, we began this trip as a chunk of individuated digital consciousness with enough complexity to evolve ourselves from a high entropy, relatively dim awareness to a low entropy, brilliant embodiment of love. From high entropy to low entropy. From dim awareness to brilliant embodiment. From noise to signal. And the only way to get there is to actually do the work. Now, when I first started connecting Thomas Campbell's framework to Bitcoin, when I listened to the first 3 episodes of his My Big Theory of Everything podcast, the only thing I could think about was Bitcoin. But I also thought, maybe I was forcing it. Maybe I was seeing like patterns that weren't there. But then I looked at the wisdom traditions. And what I found was that every single one of them developed independently across thousands of years on different continents, arrived at the exact same conclusion. The Bhagavad Gita says, better is one's own dharma, though imperfectly performed, than the dharma of another well performed. Better is death in one's own dharma. Svadharma, your own authentic path, literally means agreement with the law of one's being. The Taoists call it Wu Wei, effortless action flowing from your true nature. And Rumi says, appear as you are, be as you appear. Heidegger described authentic existence as resting yourself from the anonymous day, the conformist everydayness where, as he put it, everyone is the other and no one is himself. Carl Jung saw individuation as life's supreme purpose. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And Brené Brown confirmed it empirically. If you trade your authenticity for safety, you may experience anxiety, depression, eating disorders, addiction, rage, blame, resentment, and inexplicable grief. If you are lying to yourself about your true nature, you will not be happy experiencing this physical reality. When you are not aligned with accepting your true nature, who you truly are, then experiencing this reality for a little bit of time becomes a great obstacle. But here's the true line that matters for us. Every single one of these traditions and researches converges on the same structure. Authenticity requires genuine work. There are no shortcuts to individuation. There are no hacks for Wu Wei and no performance that substitutes for actual transformation. Again, the work you do is the proof. Remember that. The work is the proof. Because I'm about to show you that Bitcoin's proof of work is doing the same thing, and I mean structurally the same thing, in the digital world. But first, let's look at what's happening online right now. Because if low entropy is love and trust and order, then the current digital world is the exact opposite. Deepfake files surged from 500,000 in 2023 to a projected 8 million in 2025. Bot traffic surpassed human activity for the first time in 2024, and 51% of all web traffic is now coming from machines. 74% of new web pages contain AI-generated content, and Europol estimates that 90% of online content could be synthetic by 2026. And today, people cannot tell the difference anymore. Studies show we correctly identify deepfake videos only 24.5% of the time. That's worse than a coin flip. Voice cloning has crossed what researchers call the indistinguishable threshold, and UNESCO warns we're approaching a synthetic reality threshold, a point beyond which humans can no longer distinguish authentic from fabricated media. I just want to let you know that I'm real. I heard I need to wave my hands to show you I'm real. I have 10 fingers here. So this is what I've started to call the digital entropy explosion. Signal, authentic human content is being overwhelmed by noise. There's bots, deepfakes, synthetic media, and a lot of fake accounts. When you cannot tell what's real, the entire system becomes useless. And here's another data point that really hit me. News media organizations are now trusted by only 3% of consumers. 3%. And trust in government is at 22%. 1 in 3 Americans has hesitated on major financial decisions because they're afraid of being scammed. And as one report put it, trust, once an invisible assumption, is now a daily decision. And that's Thomas Campbell's fear side, right? High entropy. Nobody can trust anybody else. The digital world has become a maximum entropy environment. Maximum noise, minimum signal, the opposite of authenticity. But, and here's a big but, into this chaos there is exactly one system that is doing the opposite. One system that is actively reducing entropy in the digital world, block by block, every 10 minutes. My first video in this three-part series is about how AI will copy everything except Bitcoin. My first video in this three-part series is about how AI will copy everything except Bitcoin. My core argument is that proof of work requires real energy expenditure in the physical world that cannot be faked. And that makes Bitcoin the one digital object that AI can never replicate. If you haven't watched that video yet, it's linked in the description below. But here's a deeper layer I didn't fully explore in that video. Bitcoin doesn't just resist fakery, it actively reduces entropy. And when you see this through Thomas Campbell's framework, through the lens of consciousness evolution, the parallel becomes almost eerie. And here's what I mean. To add a block to the Bitcoin blockchain, miners perform trillions of hash calculations, real computation requiring real electricity from real power grids. Nick Szabo called this property unforgeable costliness, the same property that made gold money for 5,000 years. But the insight that most people miss is that Bitcoin's information compounds in integrity over time. Each new block adds another layer of thermodynamic security to every previous block. A transaction buried 100,000 blocks deep is protected by 100,000 blocks of cumulative proof of work. The cost of forgery grows with the entire network's history. And this is very important. Bitcoin's hash rate hit 1 zettahash per second in early 2025. The network has maintained over a 99% uptime since January 2009 and 100% uptime since March 2014. Over 940,000 blocks, each one a physical record of real energy converted into digital order. And after the 2024 halving, Bitcoin's stock-to-flow ratio doubled gold's and its inflation rate dropped below gold's. OG Bitcoin philosopher Gigi captured this perfectly. Bitcoin takes energy from the environment and puts things in order, i.e. it decreases its internal entropy. It does so by appending blocks to a well-ordered and predictable structure. Okay, so Bitcoin decreases its internal entropy, it gets more ordered, more trustworthy, more secure, more authentic every single block. The longer this happens, the higher the integrity. Okay, and this is what you need to understand. The Bitcoin blockchain is the lowest entropy, highest order digital information structure ever to be created. And unlike everything else in the digital world, it's getting more ordered, not less. All right, so this is where it all locks together. Remember the phrase from earlier, the work is the proof. Gigi said it clearly. Why does proof of work work? Because work requires energy. You cannot cheat it, you can't argue with it, you cannot lie about it. The proof that you did the work is self-evident in the outcome of the work. The same is true of authentic human beings. You cannot fake having done the inner work of genuine transformation. A person who has confronted their shadow, who has moved from fear to love, who has reduced their entropy, radiates a quality that is self-evident, just like a Bitcoin block. And think about the distinction between proof of work and proof of stake. The Gigi nailed it here again. Proof of work is trust in physics to determine what happened. Proof of stake is trust in humans to determine what happened. One is anchored in physical reality and the other floats in social consensus. And here the parallel to human authenticity is direct again. Genuine transformation is anchored in real experience, in real sacrifice, in real confrontation with your fears. That's proof of work. Social performance is anchored in the appearance of virtue, in credentials. I have a PhD, right? And what others think of you. That is proof of stake. I read another article by another OG Bitcoin philosopher called Sama Kataro, and that really got me thinking. He said the purity of the Bitcoin protocol shines like a sun in a currently dark world. Every person, organization, and country that interacts with it are forced to align to its level of purity. Forced to align, not invited, not encouraged, but forced, because you cannot perform proof of work. You either burn the energy or you don't. Just like you either do the inner work to become authentic or you don't. There's no shortcut, there's no hack, there's no credential that substitutes this work. All right, so let me bring it all the way home. Thomas Campbell showed that consciousness evolves by reducing entropy, by moving from fear-based, high-entropy states to love-based, low-entropy consciousness. Every wisdom tradition confirms that authenticity, this low-entropy state, requires genuine work that cannot be faked. And the digital world right now is experiencing a digital entropy explosion. Maximum noise, minimum trust, where you cannot tell what's real anymore. But Bitcoin, through proof of work, is doing in the digital world what authentic humans do in the physical world. It takes real energy and converts it into irreversible order. It reduces entropy block by block. It gets more trustworthy, more secure, more verified the longer it exists and does the work. It is the lowest entropy digital information ever to be created. And just like human authenticity, it achieves this through the only mechanism that has ever worked: doing real work, with the proof embedded in the outcome itself. And so the energy it uses is not a waste. It's the cost of being real, in the physical world and in the digital one. So the next time someone asks you what makes Bitcoin special, you can tell them it's the most authentic thing in the digital world. The one digital object whose truth is self-evident, physically grounded and strengthening over time rather than degrading. In a world of infinite fakes, the realest thing wins, and the realest thing in the digital world is proof that real work was done. Thanks for watching this video. I'm Bram Kanstein, and if you want to dive deeper into Bitcoin, subscribe to the channel and check out my podcast, Bitcoin for Millennials. If this resonated, share it with someone who's interested in the intersection of consciousness, authenticity, and Bitcoin. I'll catch you on the next video. Check out my other videos here and here.